From the moment Clarissa Harrington's pearls clicked against her collarbone in that sunlit garden, everyone knew this baby shower was destined to be unforgettable. Glittering chandeliers reflected her radiant smile as friends and family whispered congratulations over bubbling champagne. In the midst of laughter and lavish gifts, an ominous tension slipped into the air. A young woman in a crimson dress stood at the edge of the crowd, uninvited and utterly unapologetic. The hush that followed her appearance sent a ripple of shock through the guests. Clarissa's hand trembled on her swollen belly, but her gaze remained resolute. She already knew this interloper's secret, and it was about to change everything. Clarissa Harrington was not born into wealth, but she married into it with elegance and grace that took the city by storm. Her husband, James Harrington, hailed from one of New York's most established families. Their name was etched into the annals of business and philanthropy, whispered at exclusive country clubs from the Hamptons to Palm Beach. Being a Harrington meant never having to worry about the next meal or next month's rent. It also meant being scrutinized under a microscope for even the smallest misstep. Clarissa's rise in social circles had been a fairy tale of sorts. A brilliant scholarship student at Vassar, she'd been introduced to James during a charity gala, benefiting the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Mutual acquaintances gushed over her wit, her unshakable confidence, and the way she navigated a room with poised charm. She'd taken the first steps into the Harrington world as James's date that evening, looking resplendent in a gown borrowed from her college roommate. By the end of the night, everyone knew her name. And from that moment on, Clarissa learned how to handle wealth as though she were born to it. James, tall and broad-shouldered with hair the color of autumn leaves, fell for Clarissa's intelligence before he even realized he was entranced by her beauty. They spent late nights discussing art, traveling across Europe with last-minute plane tickets and attending social events that made Clarissa pinch herself. She was dining alongside real-world icons like Warren Buffett and occasionally exchanging pleasantries with celebrities like Sarah Jessica Parker at fundraising events. She had stepped into a life she never quite dreamed she'd have. Yet, she wore it with the natural air of a queen. Their engagement was a whirlwind of glossy magazine features and paparazzi snapshots. The wedding held at the Harrington family estate in Newport was attended by close to 1,000 guests, including a cameo appearance by an old family friend of the Harringtons, the illustrious Barbara Rockefeller. The gilded hall, endless gardens of white roses, and the radiant bride and groom made headlines across society pages. New York's golden couple. The tabloids called them, though Clarissa always found that title slightly embarrassing. She never asked for the limelight. It simply followed her wherever she went. But despite the glitz, Clarissa sometimes felt she lived on a precariously balanced scale. Wealth, power, and attention inevitably invite jealousy, secrets, and a need to maintain appearances. Like any relationship, hers and James's had struggles hidden from the public eye. While James traveled extensively for his family's business, mergers, acquisitions conferences in Dubai, Clarissa found comfort in her philanthropic endeavors. She poured her heart into her charity supporting women's education, forging alliances with global organizations, and occasionally traveling to underprivileged regions to see the impact of their funds firsthand. When Clarissa discovered she was pregnant, the Harrington clan erupted in joy. After 3 years of marriage, the next generation was on the way. This child, the first grandchild for James's parents, meant everything to them. They insisted on a grand baby shower that would become a social highlight. Clarissa agreed, not wanting to disappoint her in-laws. In the weeks leading up to the big day, lavish invitations adorned with gold foil went out to the who's who of New York society. Caterers were brought in from France, florists from Holland, and the event planner was none other than Margot Cavalier, the same woman who orchestrated the famed gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Temple of Dendur. Though Clarissa's excitement for the baby shower mounted, there was also a subtle hint of unease. James's behavior had changed over the past few months. He was distant, often missing scheduled dinners, sometimes not returning home until after midnight. When pressed, he simply blamed the demands of the business expansion. Clarissa, initially trusting, tried to brush off the twinges of suspicion. She knew how stressful the business world could be, and the Harrington empire was a vast one. Yet certain warning signs couldn't be dismissed easily. One evening after James had fallen asleep, Clarissa discovered an unfamiliar receipt in his suit pocket from a luxury boutique she never shopped at. The purchase was for a pricey diamond bracelet, yet she'd never received such a gift. Another day, she noticed lip gloss smudged on the collar of a white shirt, the shade far too bright to be hers. Late-night phone calls James would abruptly end when she approached. A swirl of doubt took root in Clarissa's mind. Determined not to jump to conclusions, Clarissa enlisted her friend from college, Margaret Maggie Linfield, who now worked as a private detective. Maggie was the only person Clarissa trusted with her suspicions. Maggie conducted discreet inquiries, quietly trailing James when he left for unplanned business dinners. As the weeks passed, Clarissa felt an icy fear lodge in her chest each time Maggie called with an update. Then 2 nights before the baby shower, Maggie sent Clarissa a photo that shook her to her core. It was James leaning intimately across a candle-lit table toward a stunning young woman with long raven black hair. They looked like any enamored couple sharing a private moment. In the photo, the woman's manicured hand rested on James's wrist, and his gaze was fixed on her with unsettling tenderness. Maggie included a quick note. They checked into the Four Seasons under the names Mr. and Mrs. Harrington. I'm so sorry, Clarissa. We'll talk soon. Clarissa locked herself in her home office, tears threatening to spill onto her cheeks. Denial warred with heartbreak. She knew she had to face the truth. But how could she confront James just hours before the grand baby shower? An event the entire Harrington family and half of Manhattan's elite would attend one part of her. The proud woman who had conquered challenges her whole life itched to march up to James the moment he stepped through the door and demand an explanation. But she also had to protect herself, her unborn child, and her public image. Confronting him now might lead to more questions than she was ready to answer. The tabloids would devour any hint of scandal, and the Harrington family prized discretion above all else. In the end, Clarissa chose patience. She had to know more. She had to confront this mistress, whoever she was, and figure out the truth. That night, Clarissa fell asleep alone, clasping her hands protectively over her growing belly, determined to handle whatever revelations lay ahead. Little did she suspect that she would come face to face with James's secret lover sooner than she'd ever imagined. The morning of the shower dawned with a crisp autumn sun. The Harrington estate, located on the outskirts of Manhattan, gleamed in readiness for the massive celebration. Dozens of cars lined the driveway. White-gloved waiters scurried in and out of the catering trucks, making sure every crystal glass was polished and hors d'oeuvres were arranged on silver trays. Florists raced through the halls, placing the final touches of orchid and rose centerpieces on the antique dining tables. Clarissa, though exhausted and emotionally drained, dressed in a lavender maternity gown that complemented her glowing skin. A discreet diamond necklace adorned her collarbone, while her hair was swept into an elegant chignon. She welcomed the first guests with a polite smile, all the while feeling as if she were balancing on a razor's edge. Every time the door opened, her heart pounded with a mixture of hope and dread. Would that mysterious, raven-haired woman appear? James, for his part, seemed the epitome of the doting husband. He greeted family members, warmly escorted Clarissa around the garden to greet well-wishers, and insisted that she rest whenever she looked tired. He had an undeniable charm, especially in public. Despite the photos Clarissa had seen, she found her resolve wavering at times. She reminded herself that illusions were part of the Harrington world. A polished front could hide countless ugly truths. Their parents were in attendance, of course, James's father, Henry Harrington, who had the stern presence of a man accustomed to controlling vast sums of money and real estate, and James's elegant mother, Evangeline Harrington, who wore an immaculately tailored cream suit. Clarissa's own mother, Loretta Albright, flew in from California. Loretta, a retired schoolteacher with a down-to-earth manner, felt out of place among the diamond-dripping crowd. Still, she beamed with pride at her daughter offering quiet reassurance with gentle squeezes of her hand. Across the estate gardens, a small live orchestra played softly. Champagne and caviar were abundant, and near an ornately carved gazebo sat the gift tables groaning under the weight of extravagant presents. Clarissa exchanged pleasantries, acutely aware of the gossip swirling around her. Various socialites like Harriet Van Buren and Lisa Vanderbilt whispered behind their manicured hands about Clarissa's extraordinary success in marrying into the Harrington clan and her rumored involvement in large-scale charity expansions in Africa. She was used to the chatter. It had followed her since the day she said "I do" to James. As the party hit its peak, Margot Cavalier approached Clarissa to discreetly check on her. "Everything looks perfect," Margot assured her, flipping through a gold-embossed schedule. "Just a few more speeches, then we'll start the gift opening." "Are you feeling all right, darling?" Clarissa forced a reassuring smile. Her stomach felt twisted in knots from anxiety rather than pregnancy. "I'm fine, Margot, truly. Thank you for managing everything so gracefully." Margot patted Clarissa's hand. "It's my pleasure, dear. You're looking absolutely radiant." Clarissa breathed deeply, trying to steady her racing heart. The day was halfway over. She could survive this. She would. If that woman was going to show up, she would have done so by now, right? But fate had other plans. Near the rose bushes bordering the gazebo, Clarissa caught a glimpse of an unfamiliar figure, slim, elegant, and poised in a crimson sheath dress that clung like a second skin. That raven-black hair cascaded down her shoulders, catching the sunlight. Clarissa recognized her immediately from the photograph, the mystery woman. Her stomach plunged. The uninvited guest slipped in among the crowd so easily it was as though she belonged. Despite the hush of confusion, a few guests stepped aside for her, seemingly entranced by her quiet confidence. For a moment, Clarissa locked eyes with the young woman and saw a flicker of determination. She came here on purpose, Clarissa thought, her pulse roaring in her ears. She's here to confront me or James or both. The crowd shifted as the woman approached Clarissa, champagne glass in hand. Clarissa's breath caught in her throat. James was across the lawn, politely listening to one of his uncles regale a story from an old Harrington family holiday. There was no immediate rescue for Clarissa. She steeled herself back straight and turned to face her husband's mistress. Up close, the woman was breathtaking. She had almond-shaped eyes, full lips painted a subtle rose, and a confidence that felt almost regal. Clarissa noted the name brand of her stiletto heels, Balenciaga, and the faintest whiff of an expensive perfume she recognized from fashion magazines. "Hello," Clarissa said, careful to keep her voice steady. "I don't believe we've met." A half-smile tugged at the woman's lips. "My name is Dahlia," she said softly. "Congratulations on your baby." Her eyes flickered down to Clarissa's belly. Clarissa forced an airy laugh, the kind reserved for awkward small talk in high society. "Thank you, Dahlia. This is a private event, friends, family, that sort of thing." "Are you with the Harrington Foundation? One of the charitable partners, perhaps?" Number Dahlia sipped her champagne. "Though that's a clever guess." They stood there, a bubble of tension enveloping them, while the party chattered on around them, oblivious. Clarissa didn't miss how Dahlia's gaze darted over to James. She stood just close enough that Clarissa could smell her perfume again. Top notes of jasmine, underpinned by something musky. Finally, Clarissa summoned the nerve to speak openly. "I know who you are," she said quietly. Her voice did not waver. "And I know why you're here." Dahlia's smile broadened as she tilted her head. "Oh, then you must also know that James and I have been seeing each other for quite some time. I'm sure you found the receipts, the phone records, the text messages. You're a resourceful woman, Clarissa." Clarissa clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms. "Your presence here is a deliberate provocation. Why is it money you want, power? Or is it something else?" A flicker of emotion crossed Dahlia's face, a strange mix of determination and pain. "Maybe I'm just tired of being hidden. Tired of being his dirty little secret overshadowed by the perfect Mrs. Harrington. A life in the shadows isn't enough for me anymore." Clarissa regarded Dahlia for a long moment. She realized with startling clarity that Dahlia had come armed with more than just bravado. She radiated a sense of purpose, as though the entire spectacle of crashing the baby shower was leading to a grand revelation. Clarissa's heart thundered. What else don't I know? A hush of dread rippled through Clarissa. Dahlia placed her half-empty champagne glass on a nearby table and turned, scanning the crowd, perhaps seeking James's figure. But Clarissa reached out, her voice low and commanding. "We are not doing this here," she hissed. "Whatever your grand plan is, you do not have the right to ruin my family's day." Dahlia cast Clarissa a cool, almost pitying look. "This is as much my day as it is yours," she said, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "Your child is not the only one James is expecting." Clarissa's blood ran cold. She stared at Dahlia's flat stomach and noticed for the first time the subtle swelling hidden by the lines of the crimson dress. Her worst nightmare, more terrible than anything she imagined, was standing before her in flesh and blood. Before Clarissa could respond, Dahlia pivoted on her heel and gracefully melted back into the throng of unsuspecting guests. Clarissa swayed unsteady. She felt the world tilt under her feet. Another baby. James is fathering another child. My God, how long has he been lying to me? Her mind spun questions piling up. How far along was Dahlia? Was James aware of her pregnancy? Did he plan to leave Clarissa or keep both relationships going indefinitely? And now Dahlia was here in the middle of the baby shower, presumably to blow up the polished Harrington veneer. Gritting her teeth, Clarissa forced herself not to stumble or show weakness. She was still the mistress of the Harrington estate. She had to remain composed. "I will not let her see me break," she told herself. But Clarissa had underestimated Dahlia's determination and cunning. A few minutes later, Clarissa spotted Dahlia circling near James. He finished speaking to his uncle, turned around, and froze, eyes wide. Dahlia offered a mocking little wave. Clarissa's cheeks flared. She had to intervene. Summoning every ounce of resolve, Clarissa glided across the lawn. As she reached them, James stuttered an introduction. Dahlia is here to discuss a potential new interior design project. He managed, panic flickering in his eyes. Dahlia's lips curled into a feline smile. Yes, I specialize in upscale remodeling. Thank you for having me today, James. Then, turning her gaze on Clarissa, she added, Your husband's been so generous in showing me around. The estate is truly magnificent. James shot Clarissa a pleading look, as though silently begging for her to play along. Clarissa fought the impulse to lash out. Instead, she forced a serene smile. I'm sorry, Dahlia, but this is a private family affair. I'm sure we can arrange a more appropriate time for business discussions. Dahlia only shrugged. Oh, of course. My apologies. I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to discuss the future, especially with what's coming. She patted her stomach lightly, and James's face went ashen. Clarissa's heart pounded, but she managed to school her expression into polite calm. In a swirl of tension, Dahlia glided away toward the buffet, leaving Clarissa and James standing there in a charged silence. James reached for Clarissa's arm, but she stepped back. Don't you dare touch me right now, her eyes seemed to say. Clarissa, I can explain. James began, voice frantic. Her voice trembled with anger. Oh, you will explain, she said quietly, keeping her composure so the nearby guests wouldn't overhear. But not here, and not now. You are going to greet your guests, smile for the cameras, and we will deal with this once the party is over. If this fiasco escalates, I swear it will be your worst nightmare. He swallowed hard, nodding almost imperceptibly. Clarissa turned on her heel, leaving James standing alone in the midst of his impeccably decorated lawn, which now felt more like a battlefield, strewn with invisible mines. Dahlia's presence loomed everywhere, and Clarissa was certain the entire event could unravel at the slightest misstep. But she refused to let her composure slip, not in front of the Harrington family, not in front of the watchful eyes of high society, and certainly not in front of Dahlia. As the afternoon wore on, Clarissa remained engaged in the baby shower festivities, opening extravagant gifts, Chanel diaper bags, heirloom cradle sets, limited edition strollers, and offering gracious thanks to every guest. Photographers from 2 prominent society magazines flitted about, capturing images of her regal smile and James's supportive stance. Outwardly, they were the picture of a happy, expectant couple. Inwardly, Clarissa counted the minutes until the last guests would leave so she could confront James and Dahlia directly. Every so often, Clarissa would glimpse Dahlia chatting with unsuspecting guests. The nerve of the woman to flit about this party uninvited, carrying James's child, broadcasting her subtle hints at a second pregnancy. Clarissa didn't know whether to admire Dahlia's brazenness or fear what she might do next. Meanwhile, Maggie Linfield arrived an hour late, blending into the crowd with a skillful ease. She shot Clarissa a meaningful look from across the garden. Clarissa took a moment to slip away from the guests and meet Maggie near a secluded hedge. "Tell me you have something," Clarissa said, breathing hard. Maggie nodded grimly. "We managed to ID Dahlia properly. Her full name is Dahlia Monroe. She's an up-and-coming interior designer with a small but influential clientele." She met James about 7 months ago at a charity event for the Harrington Foundation in Miami. After that, there were trips, weekend getaways to the West Coast dinners in private clubs. I traced payments James made to her, a rented apartment in an upscale building downtown. Clarissa's chest tightened. So it was true, all of it. James had established Dahlia as his mistress, paying her way, lying about late-night business calls. And now Dahlia was pregnant. "Did you find out if she's truly pregnant?" Clarissa asked, though she suspected the truth. Maggie hesitated. "She's visited an OB/GYN who works at a discreet clinic used by affluent clients. Records show she's about 3 months along." Clarissa closed her eyes. The timeline stung. That was around the same time James had started disappearing more frequently, claiming business expansions and last-minute conferences. Maggie's face softened. "I'm sorry, Clarissa. You deserve better. I'll do whatever I can to help you handle this." Clarissa held up a hand, inhaling slowly. "Thank you. Right now, I need to keep a lid on the situation. We'll figure out the rest once the party ends. I can't afford a scene with the entire Harrington family here." Maggie placed a comforting hand on Clarissa's arm. "I'll be standing by." Clarissa offered a tight nod and returned to the party. She moved through the crowd like a woman in a dream, exchanging polite laughter with her guests. Amid the sea of pastel balloons and polished silver trays, an undercurrent of tension crackled. Clarissa could sense Dahlia's presence like a storm cloud on the horizon. She also noticed James pale-faced and agitated, as though he might faint at any moment. But no one else seemed to realize the drama unfolding beneath the surface. Finally, late afternoon brought the baby shower to a close. Guests began to filter out, hugging Clarissa and James, wishing them the best for parenthood. The photographers snapped a final set of posed shots near the rose garden, capturing the Harrington couple under golden beams of the setting sun. With each farewell, Clarissa's pulse quickened in anticipation of the confrontation to come. Soon, only a handful of close family and friends remained to help with the cleanup. Dahlia hung back, sipping from a fresh glass of champagne. James hovered near his father, who was discussing the party's success with Evangeline Harrington and Loretta Albright. Clarissa couldn't bear to look at him for too long. She was uncertain if her fury would boil over. "Stay calm," she told herself. "Focus on the big picture." Eventually, even the Harrington elders and Clarissa's mother retreated inside the mansion to rest. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the lawn as Clarissa approached Dahlia, who stood near a marble fountain. Maggie, sensing the confrontation, kept her distance, but stayed within earshot. Dahlia turned as Clarissa stepped up. The hush of the estate grounds seemed amplified by the tension that crackled in the air. "I was wondering when you'd come," Dahlia said, arching a slender eyebrow. Clarissa took a moment to admire the surreal situation, her pregnant and exhausted face-to-face with her husband's pregnant mistress, who had shown up uninvited at her own baby shower. It was the stuff of tabloids, a scandal worthy of the highest society gossip. Yet Clarissa felt a strange surge of clarity. She needed to stay in control. "I'm only going to say this once," Clarissa began, voice firm. "I will not let you ruin the future of my child. If your goal is to publicly humiliate James and me, I suggest you consider the consequences carefully." Dahlia's expression hardened. "I'm not here to humiliate anyone. I'm here because I deserve honesty from James, and so does your precious Harrington family. I won't be hidden away any longer." James's voice cut through the tension as he finally approached, looking haggard. Dahlia, that's enough, he snapped, glancing nervously over his shoulder as if worried someone might overhear. We'll talk privately, off the estate. She turned her attention to James. You said you loved me. Dahlia hissed, her voice trembling with anger. You swore you'd leave Clarissa. Now she's pregnant. I'm pregnant. And you're still pretending everything's perfect. What was I supposed to do, keep playing the secret mistress forever? James rubbed a hand over his face. I never wanted it to come to this, he muttered. Look, Dahlia. We can make arrangements, financial support, a place for you and the baby. Don't patronize me. Dahlia flared, tears glinting in her eyes. I'm not some charity case or fling. You promised me a life with you. You promised me the world. And now I see you had no intention of following through. Clarissa's fury bubbled over at last. You home-wrecking. She caught herself pressing a hand to her chest. She inhaled sharply, refusing to let her emotions spiral out of control. You knew he was married. You knew exactly what you were doing. Don't stand here and pretend you're a victim. Dahlia's eyes glistened. I'm not pretending, she said, voice quivering. I believed James. He filled my head with lies. Maybe I'm naive, but I didn't ask for this. James looked at the two women, anguish twisting his features. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I never meant to hurt either of you. He turned to Clarissa, desperation in his voice. I love you, Clarissa. I messed up. Clarissa cut him off. You love me. This is how you show it, by betraying me, lying to me, and impregnating another woman behind my back. Don't you dare speak of love. The atmosphere was electric, all illusions of civility stripped away. Dahlia stepped forward, her tears replaced by a steely resolve. You can't just pay me off, James. Our baby deserves a father, and if you won't be in the child's life, I'll make sure everyone knows why. Clarissa felt the weight of the Harrington name bearing down on her. She could already envision the scandal, the tabloids, the sneering socialites, the endless speculation. She was the golden wife, about to have her glamorous image shattered by her husband's sordid affair. James flinched. We can figure out a settlement, he said, voice ragged. I'll do what it takes to provide for you. But Clarissa is my wife. This family, this estate, everything I've built, my loyalty is to them. Dahlia's lips curled in disgust. Loyalty. You think it's loyal to lead me on? You're a coward. Clarissa's resolve crystallized. She stepped between James and Dahlia, her voice low but commanding. That's enough. All of this enough. Dahlia, you may be carrying his child, but let me be very clear. I will protect my unborn child and the Harrington name from further disgrace. We can talk about arrangements quietly and privately, but if you think for 1 second that you can waltz into my home and hold this family hostage with your demands, you are mistaken. Dahlia's hand trembled around the champagne flute. She swallowed visibly, and then with a defiant lift of her chin, turned and stalked off across the lawn. Clarissa exhaled, trembling from the adrenaline surging through her. James reached out to touch her shoulder. Clarissa. She jerked away. Don't. Not now. He hesitated, eyes full of remorse, then nodded. All right, he whispered, voice cracking. But please, let's talk tonight. I don't want to lose you. Clarissa regarded him with something akin to pity. You should have thought of that before you betrayed me. She walked back to the mansion, ignoring the stares of the remaining staff tidying up. Inside, she locked herself in the master bedroom and sank to the floor. Hot tears spilled down her cheeks as she cradled her belly. She thought of the child within her, innocent, undeserving of this turmoil. She needed to remain strong for the baby's sake. But that night, in the silence of the grand estate, her tears and heartbreak felt as boundless as the halls she inhabited. Clarissa spent most of the evening in her private suite. Occasionally she heard footsteps in the hallway, James passing by, or perhaps a concerned family member. She refused to see him. She needed time to think, to plan her next move. This situation was more than a marital spat. It was a full-blown scandal that could affect everything from inheritance to reputation. Late that night, Maggie slipped into Clarissa's suite. She brought a small folder of documents and a comforting presence. Clarissa, still in her lavender gown, sat in an armchair, staring vacantly at her reflection in the mirror. "You should change," Maggie said gently, kneeling to help her friend remove her designer shoes. "It's been a long day." Clarissa closed her eyes, nodding. "I can't believe this is happening. I keep hoping to wake up and find it's all just a nightmare." Maggie rubbed her back sympathetically. "I know. I'm so sorry. But Clarissa, we have to strategize. The Harringtons are powerful. If James tries to keep this quiet, Dahlia might go public. That's a possibility." Clarissa inhaled, steeling herself. "I won't let her drag my child into the spotlight. And I refuse to be humiliated by James's stupidity." Maggie held out the folder. "Here's everything I have on Dahlia. Financial records, her current address, even some background info on her family. She's not from wealth, but she's ambitious. She studied design in Paris, spent time with influential mentors. She's no stranger to social climbing, but there's nothing illegal in her past." Clarissa flipped through the pages, photos of Dahlia at various events, smiling for the camera, with all the poise of a trained model. It made Clarissa's stomach twist. This was the woman James chose. A woman who might soon carry the Harrington name by association. "She wants to get James's attention," Clarissa murmured, to force him to publicly acknowledge her and their child. Her voice trembled. "But Maggie, what if she tries to cut a deal that undermines my child's inheritance? The Harrington estate is massive, but Henry Harrington can be ruthless. If Dahlia tries to claim a slice," Maggie understood, without Clarissa needing to finish the sentence. "I see. This is about preserving your child's place in the Harrington legacy." She squeezed Clarissa's hand. "I'll support you however I can, but consider your options carefully. Divorce might be messy, but it could also allow you to move on. On the other hand, fighting Dahlia for hush money could turn ugly. And if James tries to keep both sides satisfied without a public scandal, it might be a never-ending dance of secrets." Clarissa set the folder aside and stood running a hand over her stomach. She was 7 months pregnant now, too far along to handle added stress without it affecting her health. She had to think of her baby. "One thing is certain," she said grimly. "I'm not letting James pretend this never happened. He owes me the full truth." That night, Clarissa called for James to join her in the study, a regal wood-paneled room with leather-bound books and an imposing marble fireplace. He entered, shoulders slumped, face etched with guilt. Clarissa stood by the window looking out into the moonlit gardens where the last remnants of the day's celebration lay scattered. As he closed the door behind him, she turned to face him. "Start talking," she said coldly. "Don't leave anything out." He swallowed hard and began to speak. At first, his words were stilted, disjointed. He spoke of meeting Dahlia at a foundation event in Miami one night after too many drinks, how they'd exchanged numbers, how he'd become infatuated with her creativity and charm. He admitted to feeling stifled in his life as a Harrington heir, a confession that made Clarissa's blood boil. Stifled. He had every privilege imaginable. Yet he claimed their marriage had grown distant, and that Dahlia felt like an escape. Clarissa's eyes flashed with anger. An escape from what? From having a loyal wife, from your responsibilities as a future father. James winced. It was never supposed to be serious. But it escalated. I tried to break it off, but she threatened to reveal everything unless I kept seeing her. Clarissa shook her head in disgust. So you were blackmailed into continuing the affair. Is that your excuse? Pathetic. He ran a hand through his hair. I'm not making any excuses. I should have ended it the moment it started. But I was weak, Clarissa. And then she told me she was pregnant, and I panicked. I felt trapped. Trapped, Clarissa repeated bitterly. And did you consider me trapped too? I'm your wife, James. 7 months pregnant with your child. You put us all at risk. He lowered his gaze. I've been racked with guilt. I didn't know how to handle it. I thought if I kept Dahlia quiet, I could avoid a scandal, keep you from being hurt. But obviously that was naive. Clarissa crossed her arms over her chest. Do you love her? James hesitated. I don't know. I felt something for her, I suppose. But not like what I feel for you. Clarissa nearly laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. Spare me. Love is proven by loyalty, respect, and devotion. You've shown me none of those things. Clarissa, please, he said, desperation in his voice. I want to fix this. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll end things with Dahlia permanently. I'll arrange a trust fund for her baby. She held up a hand, silencing him. This isn't about Dahlia anymore. It's about you and your betrayal of our vows. Her voice trembled, tears threatening to surface. I need time. I need space. Right now, I can't even look at you without feeling sick. You will stay in a guest room. Tomorrow, I'm going to speak with your parents and a lawyer. We'll decide how best to handle Dahlia. James reached out, but Clarissa stepped back. Go, she commanded. Leave me alone. He bowed his head and shuffled out of the study like a broken man. Clarissa closed her eyes, tears streaming down her cheeks. She rested a hand on her belly. I have to stay strong for you, she thought, feeling the faint stir of the life within her. The next morning, Clarissa awoke to a house in muted chaos. Henry and Evangeline Harrington had caught wind that something was off. They'd found Dahlia's name on the security log from the day before, realized she was not on the official guest list, and overheard hushed arguments. Evangeline had confronted James at breakfast, demanding to know why an uninvited woman would attend her daughter-in-law's baby shower. James, cornered, confessed the entire affair to his parents. When Clarissa entered the breakfast room, Henry's face was ashen, Evangeline's taut with fury. Both turned to Clarissa with a mixture of sympathy and dread. She could barely hold herself together under the strain of their gazes. Henry rose from his seat, crossing the room to take Clarissa's hand. My dear, I'm horrified at James's behavior. This family will not stand for such disgrace. Evangeline nodded curtly. Absolutely. I am so sorry, Clarissa. You are our daughter-in-law, and we will protect you and your child's future, no matter what." Clarissa fought the swirl of emotions inside her. She'd always had a polite but reserved relationship with her in-laws. She knew they were loyal to the family name above all else. Yet she sensed genuine concern behind their steely expressions. "What do you propose?" she asked quietly, sinking into a chair. Henry and Evangeline exchanged glances. Henry cleared his throat. "We will handle the mistress," he said, eyes cold. "We have excellent lawyers. If she wants money, we'll pay, but on our terms. If she threatens to go public, we'll bury her with legal action. We can't allow this to stain the Harrington reputation any further." Clarissa grimaced. "She's pregnant with James's child. It's not that simple. I won't be complicit in cutting out an innocent baby, even if that child's mother is a home wrecker." Evangeline's tone softened. "I understand, dear. You have a big heart." But this woman crossed a line. Showing up uninvited to your baby shower was a deliberate act of aggression. She could have spoken to James privately. Henry nodded. "We'll arrange for a quiet settlement. She'll receive financial security if she wants it, but that child will not be acknowledged publicly as a Harrington if we can avoid it." Clarissa felt torn. Her instincts told her Dahlia wouldn't simply vanish if offered money. She wanted validation, recognition, and possibly more. Clarissa also felt the pangs of guilt. Was the baby she carried somehow more legitimate than Dahlia's child, simply by virtue of marriage? In the cutthroat Harrington world, the answer was probably yes. But morally, Clarissa couldn't shake the unease. Still, she nodded. "All right, let's proceed carefully. But I want a voice in this. Don't lock me out of the negotiations just because I'm your daughter-in-law." Henry pressed her hand. "Of course, my dear. We respect you. We'll handle this as a family." That afternoon, Clarissa learned from Maggie that Dahlia had returned to her high-rise apartment, refusing to speak to James. She had, however, connected with a lawyer known for big payouts in paternity suits among Manhattan's elite. The stage was set for an epic legal and emotional battle. Days passed in tense limbo. The Harrington legal team sent discreet inquiries, hoping to gauge Dahlia's demands. She responded with a letter stating she wanted fair child support medical expenses and an acknowledgement of paternity. She hinted that if James refused, she would leak her story to the media, possibly even writing a tell-all article or giving an exclusive interview. Meanwhile, Clarissa navigated a swirling storm of emotions. Heartbreak, anger, resentment, and an odd sense of kinship with the unborn child that shared a father with her own. She found herself rereading text messages James had sent her in their happier days, recalling the excitement they'd felt upon discovering she was pregnant. The heartbreak was almost suffocating. He was living a lie she thought grief slicing through her. He was with Dahlia, promising her a future while celebrating our baby with me. James attempted to mend their relationship with lavish gestures, flowers, apologies, heartfelt letters. Clarissa accepted none of it. She told him she needed time to decide if she could ever trust him again. They remained under the same roof, but in separate rooms, exchanging only terse, polite words when necessary. A soft knock at the door pulled Clarissa from her thoughts, like a ripple disturbing still water. She had been sitting in silence for what felt like hours. The only sound in her suite, the faint ticking of an antique wall clock. She didn't expect visitors, certainly not at this hour, not after everything. When she opened the door, she froze. Standing there was Dahlia, the very woman who had walked uninvited into Clarissa's baby shower, who had smiled while dropping a bomb, in front of half of Manhattan's elite, now stood quietly before her eyes, shadowed with resolve. Behind her, Maggie lingered uncomfortably, clearly torn about what she was facilitating. "I'm sorry," Clarissa Maggie said quickly, as if the words needed to escape before judgment could fall. "She showed up at the gate and demanded to see you. Security called me, and I thought you might want the chance to talk. Privately." Clarissa's heart began to pound. Her hand instinctively moved to rest over her swollen belly. For a long second, no one spoke. Then Clarissa stepped aside, voice tight. "Come in." Dahlia entered the suite with quiet grace, her movements hesitant as though aware she was walking into enemy territory. Maggie stood at the threshold uncertain. Clarissa gave her a quick nod. "Close the door. We'll talk alone." The door clicked shut. Dahlia glanced around the room, noting the soft luxury, the silk curtains, the gold-embroidered pillows, the serene glow of a lamp casting shadows against polished wood. But it was Clarissa's pregnant form that captured her attention and held it. "I didn't come to fight," Dahlia said at last, her voice low and subdued. "I came because my lawyer told me the Harringtons are preparing to silence me, that they'll offer money, but never acknowledge my child." Clarissa's throat constricted. She remained standing tall and composed, though her insides were a storm. That child is James's responsibility. No one is denying that. The question is, are you looking for a settlement or something else? There was a pause. Dahlia's lip trembled. "I didn't plan for this," she said quietly. "I didn't set out to trap anyone. I fell for James's promises. He said he was unhappy, said he would leave, said we had a future. I believed him. And now, I just want my baby to have what any child deserves. A name, a father, a life that doesn't start in secrecy." Clarissa narrowed her eyes. The baby shower flashed before her like a cruel performance. Dahlia's crimson dress, the soft click of her heels on the flagstone, the way she had smiled and dropped her revelation like a dagger. "So you came to my baby shower," Clarissa said, slowly to force his hand. Dahlia's shoulders drooped. "I wasn't thinking clearly. I was angry, hurt. I wanted him to come clean. Maybe I wanted to hurt him the way he hurt me. I didn't mean to humiliate you. I didn't want to be invisible anymore." Clarissa sighed and turned away, pacing toward the window, needing the moonlight to cool the fire rising in her chest. "Here we are, then," she murmured. "2 women, 1 man, 2 babies on the way, and no clean resolution." Silence filled the room, a heavy, aching silence. Clarissa turned back to face Dahlia. She studied her rival not as a threat, but as another woman, another mother. And beneath all the betrayal and resentment, she found a sliver of reluctant understanding. James had lied to both of them, deceived them both, manipulated them in different ways. Dahlia broke the silence again, her voice shaking. "I'm not here to blackmail you, Clarissa. I'm not asking to be your friend either. But I want us to talk woman to woman, mother to mother." "What do we do now?" Clarissa's eyes burned. Tears welled, but she refused to let them fall. "I can't speak for James," she said hoarsely. "But I will not allow him to abandon his responsibility. Your child deserves support, stability. If you want James in the child's life, that's a choice between you and him. I won't stand in the way of that. no matter how angry I am. Dahlia exhaled slowly. Her posture softened. Thank you. Clarissa resumed pacing, folding her arms as though physically holding herself together. But you must understand this family. It comes with rules. The Harringtons will do everything they can to suppress scandal. Henry and Evangeline, they will never let your child be publicly acknowledged unless absolutely forced. Dahlia's jaw tensed. I don't care about the name. I care about raising my baby in daylight, not in shadows. I won't watch you and James play perfect family while my child is kept a secret. Clarissa laughed bitterly. You think there's still a perfect family left to preserve? James and I are hanging on by a thread. If that. Dahlia's gaze fell to the carpet. I'm sorry, Clarissa. I know that doesn't undo anything. But I am sorry. That apology, however feeble, did something unexpected. It cracked the shell Clarissa had wrapped around her heart. Tears slid down her cheeks. She wiped them away, determined to maintain what little dignity she had left. We'll handle the financials through the lawyers, Clarissa said, steadying her voice. And if you truly want him involved, really involved, we'll figure out a legal arrangement. Custody visits. But I need time to decide what I'm doing with James. Everything's up in the air. Dahlia nodded, blinking back her own tears. I understand. Again silence descended. But this time it was different. Not the silence of rage or grief, but the fragile quiet of two women trying to navigate the wreckage of their lives. Maggie stood nearby, watching with a somber kind of empathy, bearing witness to the unlikely truce being formed. Finally, Dahlia wiped her cheeks. Her voice was small. I'll go. I appreciate you talking to me. I didn't expect you to. Clarissa could only nod. Her throat was too tight to respond. Dahlia walked to the door, placed a hand on the knob, then hesitated. Without turning back, she said, Whatever happens, I hope your child is safe and loved. Then she stepped into the hallway and disappeared. Maggie approached, placing a gentle hand on Clarissa's shoulder. Are you okay? Clarissa's lips parted. A tremor passed through her body. I don't know, she whispered. But I do know one thing. Everything has changed. Forever. As Clarissa watched Dahlia disappear down the grand hallway, she realized there was no going back to how life once was. She stood at the crossroads of heartbreak and responsibility, faced with the cruel truth that the fairy tale marriage she once treasured had been built on fragile foundations. Yet within her heart, she felt a flicker of resolve to fight for her unborn child's future, to forge an identity beyond the perfect Harrington wife, and to ensure Dahlia's baby would not be wholly abandoned. Where would the battle lines be drawn? How would James atone, or would he ever? Now all that remained was to find a path forward for two unborn children, bound by one father's betrayal. The real drama had only just begun. If you found yourself riveted by this story, filled with secrets, scandal, and the resilience of motherhood, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Join us for more dramatic tales that explore the heights of luxury and the depths of human emotion. Your support helps keep these stories coming, so don't forget to hit that notification bell and stay tuned for the next captivating chapter of real-life drama.